A murderer found perfect peace in meditation, while a kind mother who sacrificed her whole life for her children died alone in despair. At first glance, this sounds utterly absurd. From childhood, we've been taught, do good and you will receive good, do evil and you will suffer. Yet when we look at the world, countless cases confuse us. Why is it that some people live in sin, causing pain to others, but somehow find peace at the end of their lives? And why do some who live selflessly, dedicating themselves to others, still end up trapped in endless suffering? If the law of karma truly exists, has it abandoned the kind-hearted? Or is karma nothing more than a comforting belief humans cling to in times of pain? The truth is, these very paradoxes are the doorway into understanding the deeper workings of karma. Karma does not always unfold instantly before our eyes. Sometimes its fruits ripen much later than expected. Sometimes they stretch across lifetimes, beyond what one life can witness. And sometimes what appears to be peace for the wicked is merely a moment of stillness before the storm, while the suffering of the good becomes the trial that leads them toward a greater opening. That explains why there are stories so paradoxical that the world stops to reflect. A notorious killer who met the Buddha and became a revered monk. A mighty king who realized at death that none of his gold or power would follow him, only his acts of generosity. A starving child who offered a single bowl of rice and was reborn as a king. These are not fairy tales told for amusement, but mirrors reflecting how karma operates, sometimes slow, sometimes fierce, sometimes merciful, but never mistaken. So, in this endless cycle of cause and effect, where is the path that frees us from the senseless suffering that seems to have no end? And how, in our daily lives, can we plant seeds of peace for ourselves and for others? That is why you must not turn away from the stories that follow. Each one is a living mirror, not to be heard and forgotten, but to be used to reflect on your own life. Story 1. The Boy Who Offered Rice and His Destiny to Become a King. Chapter 1. The Rice Bowl at the Crossroads of Fate. Dawn had just broken. A small village nestled at the foot of the Vinya Mountains in ancient Magadha was slowly awakening in the pale sunlight. The dirt paths were still wet with dew, and the crowing of roosters echoed through the poor hamlet. On the village's edge, inside a crooked hut thatched with dry grass, a boy held tightly onto a steaming bowl of rice. His name was Arjun, only 10 years old. His hair was messy, his body thin and frail, yet his eyes were bright though shadowed with dark circles. Today, after an entire day of begging around the market, he had brought home just one small bowl of rice. All there was for his family. The rice was plain and white, its humble fragrance rising in the cool morning air. Arjun set the bowl down in front of his mother and younger sister. Brother Arjun, a soft, weak voice called. It was Meera, only 5 years old. Her lips were cracked, and her tiny hands clutched his sleeve. I'm so hungry. Arjun bit his lip and glanced at his mother. The woman was gaunt, coughing between words, her eyes tired yet tender. She gently pushed the bowl back toward her son. Eat it, Arjun. You're the strength of this house. If you have no energy, who will carry firewood to the market to trade for grain? The boy clenched his fists. But, Mother, and Meera too. Myra's round eyes shimmered with tears. Just one bite for me, please. Arjun was about to lift a handful of rice for her, when suddenly the sound of excited villagers swept through the air. The Buddha is coming. The monks are walking through our village. The words spread like wind, drawing people out of their homes. Farmers rushed to the road with palms joined, while some scrambled to prepare offerings. Voices rose all around. They say whoever offers food to him gains immeasurable merit. His compassionate gaze can calm the restless heart. We are so fortunate to see him today. Arjun froze. The bowl of rice in his hands suddenly felt unbearably heavy. A terrifying, conflicting thought pierced his mind. Should I offer this rice to the Buddha? His stomach growled fiercely. His mother and sister were still starving, and this was the only food they had. But the saffron-robed monks were drawing near, their presence like golden sunlight cutting through the morning mist. Arjun looked from the bowl to his mother. Mother, what should I do? Her eyes locked onto his, her voice hoarse yet steady. My son, sometimes we cannot think only of our bellies. Listen to your heart. If you wish to keep it, I will not blame you. But if you wish to give it, then give it with all your sincerity. Mira tugged at his sleeve, whispering, I want to eat, but if you give it to the holy monks, I can endure. Arjun's throat tightened. He was just a child, yet in that moment he felt the weight of an adult's burden pressing on his small chest. From the edge of the village, the procession appeared. The monks in golden robes walked serenely, their eyes calm as still water. At their head was the Buddha. The morning light shone upon his face, gentle, profound, and vast as the sky. The villagers fell silent, bowing with reverence. Arjun clutched the bowl of rice, his heart pounding. The sound of the monks' footsteps drew closer, their chants flowing like a quiet stream. An old woman near him whispered, Whoever gives rice today, blessings will follow them through lifetimes. Arjun's body trembled. He heard the gnawing of his empty stomach, the faint swallowing of his little sister, the weary sigh of his mother. Two voices battled inside his head. One hissed, Keep it. Without food, you'll collapse. Your mother and sister will waste away. This bowl is your family's life. The other thundered, Give it. Offer the only thing you have, and in that giving, you will become richer than you ever imagined. The Buddha stopped, his gaze falling gently upon Arjun. It was not commanding nor demanding, only silent compassion, like a still lake reflecting the boy's restless heart. Arjun's lips trembled. Mother, if I give it all, you and Mira will starve. Her thin hand rested on his shoulder. Hunger will pass, my child, but the chance to plant such a seed of virtue as today may never come again in a lifetime. Myra's eyes shone with both longing and trust. Brother Arjun, I believe in you. Arjun rose to his feet. His small hands lifted the rice bowl to his chest. His breath was unsteady, sweat streamed down his forehead, his heart hammering like a drum. The Buddha stepped forward, his saffron robe now directly before him. The entire village held its breath. Every gaze turned to the frail boy holding the only meal his family had for the day. Arjun's hands shook violently. He gripped the bowl tighter, his lips slowly parting. Chapter 2. The Gift That Cost. Everything. The village seemed to hold its breath. Silence spread so deep that one could hear the wind slipping through the gaps in the thatched roofs, the rustle of dry leaves beneath the feet of the curious villagers standing in a wide circle. Even the birds that usually chirped noisily on the old tree at the edge of the village had gone quiet, as if all of nature was watching the frail boy. Clutching a steaming bowl of rice in his hands, Arjun swallowed hard. The heat from the rice seeped into his palms, the fragrant steam wrapping around his face, mocking his hunger. His stomach groaned, twisting with pain so sharp that his vision blurred. He knew if he ate, at least for today, his mother, his little sister, and he himself would have enough strength to push back death for one more night. If he didn't, he wasn't sure they would even survive until dawn. And yet, standing before him was the Buddha. The master did not speak. He did not reach out his hand. He simply stood there, luminous, serene, a presence that quieted the world. His gaze was gentle, like the still surface of a lake at dawn. That silence itself was a question resounding within the boy. What will you choose? To keep or to give? Arjun turned to his mother. She was frail, her skin pale, her hand pressed to her chest as hunger stole her strength. For years she had endured hardship without breaking, yet now her eyes carried both exhaustion and a strange, unwavering trust in her son. I don't know if I can do it, mother, Arjun whispered, his voice trembling. Her thin hand rested on his shoulder. Her voice was weak, yet steady. Arjun, every grain of rice in this bowl is our life. But life is not measured only by a meal. To give sometimes is also to preserve. Every act of offering, if born from a pure heart, plants a seed. And no seed planted with sincerity ever dies. Tears stung his eyes. He turned toward his sister. Mira clung to his sleeve, her cracked lips quivering. Brother, if we eat, we'll only be full for a little while. But if you give, maybe our lives will change forever. I don't know why, but I believe in you. Arjun's heart sank under the weight of their words. The rice bowl burned heavier in his hands. No longer mere food, but the fate of his family condensed into a single choice. A voice within urged, eat. If not, your sister may collapse right here. Eat, for you are young, and you must live before you can dream of anything else. But another voice, deeper, whispered, "Give, and you will touch a life greater than this fragile body. Give, and you will nourish not just the flesh, but the soul." He squeezed his eyes shut, his breath sharp, his body torn between two roads. One paved with survival, the other glowing with selflessness. "But if I give, who will promise we'll live through this? Who will promise this isn't the end?" he cried out. His mother's lips curved into a weary smile. "No one can promise, my son. But in this world, what we clutch will be lost, and what we give will remain. That is the law that never fails." Mira whispered too, her voice thin as a thread. "I believe you. If you give, heaven will not abandon us." Arjun opened his eyes. He looked at the rice bowl, at his fragile hands, then at the Buddha's radiant stillness. And suddenly, within the storm of hunger, a strange calm bloomed. The ache in his belly remained, but his heart felt as if a small lamp had been lit inside. Slowly, he lowered himself. His knees pressed into the cracked earth. With trembling arms, he raised the rice bowl high, offering it fully to the Buddha. In that instant, the whole village froze. No one dared speak. Even the wind seemed to pause. Arjun whispered in his heart, "I give it all. Even if this is my only life, if I give it with a pure heart, I believe it will not be lost." As the rice bowl rose, his eyes glowed, not with despair, but with a quiet fire, like a flame refusing to die in the darkest night. The Buddha extended his hand. No haste, no hesitation, only a gentle motion. Receiving the offering, in his gaze shone infinite compassion. The villagers broke. Some wept openly, some dropped to their knees. And in that single moment, a seed of destiny was planted into the soil of time. But Arjun did not yet know that what seemed like a reckless act would one day turn the course of his fate forever. Chapter 3. A small seed, a great fruit. The villagers were still bowing low to the ground after witnessing the strange scene. A starving child, with nothing but his only bowl of rice, offering it all to the Buddha. They whispered to one another, their voices filled with both awe and worry. "That boy is foolish to give away the only food he had. How will he survive now? But look, why do his eyes shine like that? I've never seen such light in a child's gaze." Perhaps nothing is truly lost. Since the Buddha has accepted it, surely something wondrous will follow. Arjun stood silently. Hunger still roared in his chest, yet his soul felt washed clean. He squeezed his mother's and sister's hands and whispered, "I gave everything away, mother. But I don't feel afraid. I believe something good will come." His mother embraced her children, eyes brimming with tears. "Arjun, you have planted a seed. No matter what happens in this life, I believe that seed will sprout in another spring." Time passed, and Arjun's family remained in poverty. Some days they still went hungry, some nights they still curled up against the cold. Yet after that day, Arjun never sank into despair again. He often told his younger sister, "Mira, don't be afraid. The seed has been planted. Sooner or later, it will grow. We just need patience." And strangely enough, though hunger remained, it seemed an unseen force supported them. Neighbors occasionally brought them sweet potatoes or wild greens. A caravan of merchants, seeing their plight, left behind some provisions. These small things were enough to carry them through. Arjun grew up in hardship, yet his heart only grew more compassionate. He would often share half of his own meager meal with children worse off than himself. The villagers began calling him the boy with the shining eyes, for in those eyes there was always a spark of faith, even in suffering. The day of parting finally arrived. Arjun breathed his last in his mother's arms, with a peaceful smile upon his lips. Though she wept, she whispered softly, "My son, you have planted a seed that not even death can erase." Thus, by the law of karma, that seed began to sprout. In another life, Arjun was reborn into the royal palace of a prosperous kingdom. From the time he was a prince, he was different. Instead of indulging in luxury, he enjoyed listening to the stories of common folk in the marketplace. He cared for beggar children, often sneaking his food to share with them. His tutors in the palace marveled. The prince has a rare compassion. It is as though he once knew hunger. And so now he feels deep empathy for those in need. When he ascended the throne, Arjun, now a great king, ruled with a heart of kindness. He opened the royal granaries to feed the hungry, built homes for the poor, and personally visited the sick. His people called him the King of Compassion. One day, during court assembly, the topic of karma was raised. A minister bowed deeply and asked, "Your Majesty, people say your great fortune is the fruit of past lives. Might we hear your own thoughts on this?" The king fell silent for a long time before answering. "Do you know why I sit upon this throne today? It is not because I am clever, nor because my ancestors were powerful. It is because, long ago, a poor boy offered his only bowl of rice to the Buddha. A small bowl of rice, given with a pure heart, became the seed that ripened into this throne today." The entire court was struck silent. Some lowered their heads, others wept quietly. The king continued, "Giving does not make us poor. In clinging tightly, we often lose everything. But in letting go, we plant a seed. That seed grows, reaching upward, and one day it bears fruits sweeter than we could ever imagine. This is the law of karma, it never errs." An elder sage rose, pressed his palms together, and said, "Your Majesty, today's words will be carried down through the ages. For they reveal a truth. Generosity is the source of merit, the very root of peace." The king smiled. In his eyes still glimmered the same light that once shone in the gaze of the hungry boy, clutching a bowl of rice at the crossroads of life and death. And so, the story closes with its teaching. A small act, when born of a pure heart, can alter destiny, not just of one life, but of many. A single bowl of rice, seemingly enough only for survival that day, became the karmic seed that raised a poor boy into a great and benevolent king. In daily life, we may not have the chance to do grand deeds, but even a kind word, a small act of sharing, a gesture of compassion, these are seeds. Planted with a pure heart, they will sprout, bear fruit, and become shade not only for ourselves, but for the whole world. Never fear that giving will make you poor. As the Buddha taught, generosity is the fountain of merit, the inexhaustible source of peace and liberation. Story 2. Angulimala, from Bandit to Saint. Chapter 1. The Phantom with the Necklace of Fingers. Night fell upon the forest outside the city of Kosala. The wind rattled through broken branches like the sound of snapping bones. Villagers hurried to bolt their doors, hearts pounding whenever footsteps echoed from afar. They whispered the name that haunted them all, Angulimala. He was no ordinary bandit. He did not merely rob travelers of their wealth. Each life he took, he severed a finger and strung it onto a gruesome necklace worn around his neck. It was the mark of a man who had become a demon in human form. People said that wherever his shadow appeared, blood and tears would follow. In a shabby hut on the forest's edge, a poor family huddled by a small fire. A little girl whispered to her, "Mother, mother, will he come here?" The woman pulled her child close, trembling. "Don't speak his name aloud. If he hears, he will find us. Pray that the Buddha will protect us." Outside, Angulimala strode down the leaf-strewn path. Moonlight glinted off his bloodstained sword. Around his neck, the string of human fingers swung heavily, reeking of iron and decay. He tilted his head to the sky and let out a hollow laugh. "Still not enough. My teacher promised that when I gather 1,000 fingers, I will become supreme. How many more must die? I don't care, as long as I reach immortality." A memory flashed. Once, he had not been a monster. Once, he was a gifted student, bright and devoted. But envy and slander poisoned his life. The teacher he trusted most deceived him, claiming that only by collecting 1,000 human fingers could he attain ultimate knowledge. That seed of delusion sprouted into madness, transforming him into a butcher of men. That night, he ambushed a young merchant. The man dropped to his knees, head bowed to the ground. "Please spare me. I have a wife and children. Take all I own, but spare my life." Angulimala's eyes were empty. He raised his sword. "Your finger will bring me closer to my destiny. Your family means nothing to me." A scream tore through the night. The necklace grew longer, one more finger swaying among the rest. Blood seeped into the earth, dark and heavy. He burst into a chilling laugh that sent wild beasts fleeing. Yet in some hidden corner of his mind, something stirred. For a heartbeat, he saw the merchant's eyes, wide with despair. He imagined a wife waiting by a dim lamp, children trembling with hunger and fear. His hand froze, but the madness surged again. He roared, "No, I cannot stop. If I stop now, everything is meaningless. Throughout the kingdom, terror spread. Shrines were built, incense burned, prayers sent that the Buddha would intervene. Soldiers marched into the forest to capture him, but all failed. He moved like a wolf, struck like a tiger, and knew no fear. Even in the royal court, his name was spoken in dread. The king summoned his ministers. They argued strategies, but none dared face him. One official whispered, "Your Majesty, he is no longer human. He is a demon cloaked in flesh. Only a saint could face him." The king nodded with a heavy sigh. He too knew that swords and soldiers could not vanquish this phantom of terror. Meanwhile, Angulimala pressed on, leaving blood in his wake. Entering a small village, he scattered farmers from their fields. They abandoned their tools, their dreams of harvest, fleeing in panic. He stood in the center of the field, the necklace clinking in the wind. "Listen well," he bellowed. "I am Angulimala. Each of your fingers is but a step on my path to power. Run if you want to live." Children screamed, women wept, men clenched their teeth and dragged their families away. The village dissolved into chaos, like a flock of birds torn apart by a hawk. In the midst of the panic, an old woman could not flee. She sank to the ground, trembling, palms pressed together in prayer. Angulimala approached, sword raised, moonlight dancing on the blade. Yet her eyes held no hatred, no fear, only compassion. His heart stuttered. A voice within him whispered, "What are you doing? Are you still human?" He clutched his head, shouting to drown it out. His arm trembled, unable to strike. The old woman whispered softly, "My son, your karma is heavy indeed." He shook violently, eyes bloodshot, and roared, "Silence! I will have power. I will be immortal. No one can stop me." That night, he walked the road alone again. The necklace of fingers rattled with each step, yet in his mind, the vision of the old woman's gentle eyes lingered, piercing him deeper than any sword. He clenched the grisly necklace, grinding his teeth. "I will go on until I have my 1,000. I will become unmatched. Even if I must walk through rivers of blood, I will not stop." But ahead lay a meeting that would change everything. A meeting that would turn his blood-soaked path in a direction no one could have imagined. Chapter 2. The footsteps no one could catch. Dawn was breaking. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the canopy of the Kosala forest. A thin veil of mist blanketed the earth, while birdsong echoed in the distance, announcing a new day. Yet deep within the forest, the air remained heavy, haunted by the name that struck terror into every heart, Angulimala. That morning, Angulimala wandered along a familiar trail. The grisly garland of severed fingers hanging from his neck had grown so long it clattered against his chest, producing a macabre rattle with each step. His eyes gleamed with madness, yet somewhere in the depths of his heart, doubt had begun to stir. How many more? How many more lives before I reach immortality? He muttered under his breath, eyes bloodshot. Or has it all been a lie? Just then, he spotted a lone figure ahead. Clad in saffron robes, carrying a begging bowl, the man walked calmly along the forest path. His steps were steady, serene, utterly unafraid, unmoved by the blood-soaked tales that haunted this very road. Angulimala halted. Who dares walk here alone? Does he not know this path belongs to me? Has he not heard my name? His rage ignited. Clutching the grisly garland, he roared, "You there? Do you not know whose land this is? Have you never heard the name Angulimala?" But the monk did not answer. He continued walking, silent, serene, as though untouched by the shout. Snarling, Angulimala drew his sword and charged. His footsteps thundered on, the ground like a predator pouncing on prey. He thought the stranger would fall in an instant. Yet something strange happened. No matter how fast he ran, the distance between him and the robed figure did not shrink. The monk walked slowly, peacefully, yet Angulimala could not close the gap. The harder he tried, the more impossible it seemed. "What sorcery is this?" he roared, sweat dripping down his back. He sprinted faster, lungs burning, but still the figure remained just out of reach. Each step of the monk shone with a quiet light, while each of his own seemed to drag him deeper into darkness. Finally, in a voice hoarse with fury, he shouted, "Stop! I command you, stop!" The man in saffron robes halted. Slowly he turned. His gaze was radiant, clear as the full moon, gentle, yet carrying immeasurable depth. It was the Buddha. Looking directly at Angulimala, the Buddha said, in a voice as calm as flowing water, "I have already stopped long ago. It is you who have not stopped." The words struck Angulimala like an invisible blade piercing his chest. His hands trembled so violently that his sword slipped and fell to the ground. You say you have stopped? But I see you still walking," he stammered. The Buddha replied, with quiet firmness, "I have stopped all violence, all cruelty, all wrong paths long ago. But you have not stopped. You still run blindly in the cycle of blood and hatred. You think you are advancing, yet you are only plunging deeper into ruin." Visions flashed before Angulimala's eyes, terrified screams, pleading hands, faces twisted in fear. A tidal wave of his victims' suffering crashed down upon him. Clutching his head, he cried, "Silence! Do not remind me. Everything I did, I was told it would. Grant me wisdom, immortality. I cannot stop now." The Buddha stepped closer, his gaze filled with compassion. "Men may deceive you, but whether to stop or not lies in your own heart. A single finger, 1,000 fingers, can they bring you freedom? Or do they bind you tighter in the chains of karma?" Tears began to stream down Angulimala's scarred face. For the first time in years, he felt weakness. He felt utterly lost, without anchor. His voice broke like that of a lost child. "Then tell me, what must I do? After all this blood, all these sins, is there truly a way back?" The Buddha answered, "One moment of awakening is enough. Stop here, in this very breath. Lay down your sword, lay down your hatred. That is the path to freedom." Angulimala collapsed to his knees. His sword clattered on the ground. The finger garland rattled mournfully, as though lamenting the lives it represented. He wailed, "But I have killed too many. My crimes reach higher than the mountains. Who would forgive me? Who would believe me?" The Buddha's voice was steady, gentle. "Karma cannot be erased, it must be born. But it can be transformed, here and now, with every breath. Look at me, Angulimala. I see not a monster, but a human being yearning for release." The forest seemed to fall silent. Sunlight broke through the canopy, illuminating the tears streaming down Angulimala's face. He looked at the Buddha, eyes shimmering with both despair and the faintest glimmer of hope. Softly, he whispered, "If there truly is a way back, then I vow to stop here and now." The Buddha nodded. Extending his hand, he offered a gesture of boundless acceptance, like a father welcoming a lost child home. In that instant, Angulimala felt the crushing weight on his shoulders begin to lift. The grisly garland, once his symbol of power, now seemed meaningless. He bowed low before the Buddha, hands pressed together, body trembling. From the depths of his heart, he knew this was the turning point of his entire existence. And with a trembling voice, he whispered, "Please, let me take refuge in you. Show me the path, O Blessed One." Chapter 3. When the sword fell, the path of transformation. The forest floor was still damp with morning dew. Angulimala's sword, once drenched in the blood of countless innocents, now lay silently on the earth. No longer a symbol of power or terror, it was nothing more than a piece of cold steel, abandoned and forgotten. Angulimala collapsed to his knees, his entire body trembling. Tears streamed down his hardened face, revealing a lost child who had finally found his true home. The garland of severed fingers rattled against his chest, a chilling sound that seemed to echo the cries of the departed. Yet at that very moment, as his hands pressed together in reverence toward the Buddha, even those dreadful sounds seemed to dissolve. "Blessed One, have mercy on me. I have wandered in darkness for so long. Please, let me return." The Buddha gazed at him silently. There was no judgment in his eyes, no disdain, no trace of hatred. Instead, Angulimala saw an ocean of compassion, vast enough to dissolve the sins of the world. The Buddha spoke, his voice as gentle as a breeze. "The evil you have done will bear its fruit. No one escapes the law of karma. But from this very moment, if you truly stop, if you abandon harmful deeds, another path opens before you. That path will not erase the past, but it will transform your future." The words struck Angulimala like a bell of awakening. He lifted his tear-stained face, and in his eyes glimmered something he had not known for years: hope. I will abandon everything. Please, let me follow you. Let me become your disciple." Thus the man who once spread terror through the land now donned the saffron robes of a monk. On his first day entering the Sangha, many looked upon him with fear and suspicion. News spread quickly. The dreaded finger-garland killer had become a disciple of the Buddha. People scoffed, outraged. How can a murderer of hundreds be called a monk? The blood of families still cries out from the earth. But the Buddha, calm as ever, replied, "One who has gone astray and turns back is far more precious than one who plunges deeper into wrongdoing. We cannot change the past, but every moment lived in awareness opens the door to a new future." His words silenced many, and for Angulimala, they became the torch lighting his new path. From that day on, his life was utterly transformed. No longer a thief, no longer a terror, he walked with a begging bowl, quietly meditating, chanting, and repenting for his past. When he passed through villages, people still hurled stones, insults, and curses. His body bled, but he did not retaliate. He did not complain. Instead, he folded his hands and whispered within, "May this pain be the debt I must repay. May no being suffer because of me." Again, one day, as he sat in meditation beneath a tree, children spotted him and began to throw stones. A large rock struck his head, blood soaking his robes. Yet he looked up at the sky and smiled softly. "This is the fruit of the seeds I once planted. Blessed am I to repay them in this very life." Through years of practice, his heart grew still. The ghastly visions that once haunted him slowly faded, replaced by clarity and boundless compassion. With steadfast effort, Angulimala finally attained the state of arahant, a liberated being, freed from the cycle of birth and death. It is said that one day, someone asked the Buddha, "Blessed One, can a murderer like Angulimala truly become a saint?" The Buddha smiled. "In a river muddied and dark, if a drop of pure water falls, is it not still pure? Evil does not vanish on its own, but awareness and compassion can transform an entire life. Do not underestimate even a single moment of awakening." The lesson of Angulimala resounds to this day. No matter how sinful the past, no matter how deeply one has walked in darkness and blood, one moment of awakening can open the way to light. Charity, compassion, renunciation, these are the keys to transforming karma. None of us are perfect. Each carries mistakes, some small, some heavy. But the Buddha taught, in this very breath, if you truly stop, the universe itself will open a new door for you. Angulimala, once a feared bandit, became an enlightened saint, revered by generations. His story is a living testament that karma spares no one, yet imprisons no one either. It always offers a chance for transformation, if you dare to stop and begin again from your own heart. Story 3. The Greedy Goldsmith, the Price of Desire. Chapter 1. The Secret Behind the Furnace. In the city of Florence, Italy, during the 17th century, where master goldsmiths were regarded as the pride of the nation, there lived a renowned craftsman named Giovanni Barisi. His fame spread far and wide because of his unmatched skill. He could transform raw gold into jewelry so exquisite that nobles and wealthy merchants from across the region sought him out. In his shop, rings glittering with gems and finely carved golden chains sparkled under the glow of oil lamps, enchanting anyone who entered. People whispered with admiration, "Barisi has the hands of Hermes himself, turning raw gold into masterpieces." But behind this brilliant facade lay a dark secret no one suspected. Giovanni was clever, resourceful, and extraordinarily skilled. Yet alongside his talent lived a shadow, greed. From the time he was a young apprentice, he had secretly kept tiny specks of gold dust that fell from his master's workbench, hiding them away in a small iron box beneath the floorboards. At first, it was so little he excused himself, muttering, "Just a few specks, nothing anyone would miss. I worked so hard, why shouldn't I keep a little for myself?" But like fire fed with oil, greed grew. Years later, when customers brought in gold to be refashioned, Giovanni began swapping a portion of pure gold with alloys of lesser quality. He crafted dazzling pieces, yet secretly siphoned wealth into his private hoard. Customers praised his artistry, never realizing they were being cheated. Giovanni, meanwhile, grew rich. One autumn afternoon, as the sunlight washed Florence's terracotta rooftops in gold, a Venetian merchant named Lorenzo di Rossi entered the shop. He carried a small chest which, when opened, shone so brightly it lit the room. "Master Barisi," Lorenzo said with a smile, "I want you to craft a wedding set for my family. This gold was left by my father. It is our ancestral treasure. I wish it to become a jewel that will be passed down for generations." Giovanni's eyes glittered as he gazed at the chest. His heart raced. A single thought pulsed in his mind. If I keep just a little, no one will ever know. Outwardly, however, he bowed and replied smoothly, "You may rest assured, sir. Your gold will become the most magnificent masterpiece Florence has ever seen." That night, in the workshop behind his shop, Giovanni bent over the furnace. Flames roared, casting a crimson glow on his face. His eyes gleamed like those of a predator hovering over prey. He held a heavy bar of gold, its weight almost intoxicating. Sweat beaded on his brow as a crooked smile tugged at his lips. Reaching for a pouch, he revealed a secret stash of copper and gold alloy. He had prepared in advance. "Just a small substitution," Giovanni whispered to himself, as though seeking absolution. "No one will know. The jewelry will still shine. And I will have even more. Treasure for myself." The clink of metal, the crackle of fire, and the low murmur of a man bargaining with his conscience filled the night. One evening, his wife Isabella quietly entered the workshop. She found him hunched by the furnace, hastily shoving a bar of gold into a drawer. "Giovanni," she called softly, her voice trembling. "What are you doing?" He startled, his face paling. Before he forced a calm mask. "Nothing, Isabella. Go back to bed." She stepped closer, her eyes fixed on his gold-stained hands. I saw you. You were swapping the gold." "Why, Giovanni? We are not poor. You have skill, you have fame. Why risk everything?" Giovanni clenched his fist, his voice hardening. "You don't understand. They bring chest after chest of gold, and I take only a little. It harms no one. Don't interfere." Isabella's eyes brimmed with tears. "Greed never stops, Giovanni. It devours everything. I fear one day it will destroy us." He turned his back on her, trying to hide his unease. Yet inside, a storm had begun to rage. As months passed, his secret stash grew. The iron box beneath the floor was now filled with stolen dust, bars, and trinkets. At night, when Florence slept, Giovanni would unlock it and gaze at his hoard, his eyes shining with the fever of an addict. "I am too clever," he thought. "No one suspects. Soon, I'll be wealthier than the greatest merchants." But he had forgotten. Heaven's net is vast, and not even a speck of stolen gold can slip through forever. One morning, Lorenzo returned, his voice full of anticipation. "Master Barisi, how fares the jewelry? I am eager to see it." Giovanni smiled confidently, presenting a crimson velvet case. When Lorenzo opened it, the room lit up with the brilliance of rings, bracelets, and a necklace that seemed fit for royalty. "Magnificent!" Lorenzo exclaimed, his eyes wide with admiration. "You are truly a genius." But as he turned to leave, a tiny speck of gold dust slipped from Giovanni's sleeve, glimmering in the morning light. Lorenzo's eyes narrowed. His smile faded. Suspicion flickered in his gaze. Giovanni froze. His hand clenched instinctively, cold sweat running down his back. He forced a laugh. Just leftover dust from the workbench, nothing unusual. But Lorenzo said nothing, his stare sharp as a blade. The shop's air grew heavy, thick, like the furnace's heat burning in daylight. Giovanni swallowed hard. Inside, dread churned. One terrifying thought hammered in his skull. Could my secret be unraveling? Chapter 2. The Great Deal That Turned into Ruin. The winter wind carried with it the sharp scent of frost, as the town prepared for the arrival of caravans filled with precious metals and gems. Among those waiting eagerly was Heinrich, the master goldsmith whose reputation for craftsmanship still shimmered like gold in the eyes of many, though those who had suffered at his hands whispered quietly of deceit hidden beneath his polished smile. For weeks, rumors spread that a wealthy merchant named Rodrigo was on his way from the southern ports, carrying with him raw gold nuggets from distant mines. It was said that Rodrigo sought only the finest goldsmith to refine and craft the raw treasure into ornaments fit for the courts of kings. The town buzzed with speculation, and inevitably, Heinrich's name rose to the surface. When Rodrigo entered the town square, his caravan loaded with chests, Heinrich approached him with the confidence of a man certain of his skill. "Master Rodrigo," Heinrich greeted with a bow, his words wrapped in silk. "If it is true you seek one who can transform raw stone into radiance, then you will find no better hands than mine." Rodrigo studied him with calculating eyes that had witnessed many men undone by their own greed. Yet, the merchant had heard enough about Heinrich's artistry to give him a chance. "You will work with the gold," Rodrigo said, his voice steady. "But remember, what belongs to me must be returned in full. I trust you, because the people of this town trust you. Do not betray that trust." The warning was clear, but Heinrich's heart had already been seized by the whisper of temptation. When Rodrigo's men delivered the heavy chests to his workshop, Heinrich's eyes gleamed not only with admiration but with hunger. Inside, chunks of raw gold sparkled beneath the lamplight, their weight pressing against his chest as if testing his soul. That night, alone in his workshop, Heinrich muttered to himself, "A few pieces, only a handful. Who would ever notice? With this, I could buy land. I could live like a lord. I could pass my wealth to my children. Rodrigo has more than enough. Why shouldn't I take what I deserve?" His trembling fingers reached into the chest, lifting a nugget that glowed like fire. The temptation was too strong, and Heinrich carefully set aside several pieces, hiding them beneath loose floorboards. The following days, Heinrich worked with feverish energy. He melted, refined, and shaped the gold into bracelets, necklaces, and rings. The smoke of the furnace filled the air, mingling with the scent of ambition and fear. To Rodrigo, he presented beautiful pieces, flawless and radiant, but each time Heinrich stole a little more, convincing himself it was harmless. Yet suspicion grows like a shadow. Rodrigo began noticing the numbers didn't align. The weight of gold he had entrusted was not returned in the ornaments. His men, meticulous in their records, whispered their doubts. One evening, Rodrigo entered Heinrich's workshop unannounced. The fire of the forge cast shadows across Heinrich's sweating face as he tried to hide the stolen nuggets. "Master Heinrich," Rodrigo said, his tone quiet but sharp, "something does not add up. I gave you gold, and yet, not all of it has returned. Where's the rest?" Heinrich's voice cracked as he lied. "The fire consumes much. The process demands loss. Surely you, a man of trade, understand such things." But Rodrigo's gaze did not waver. He stepped closer, his boots echoing on the stone floor. With a swift motion, he lifted a plank near the furnace, revealing Heinrich's secret hoard. The room fell silent. Heinrich's face turned pale, his lips trembling, as his hands reached out in desperation. "Please, Rodrigo, just a little greed, nothing more. I was blinded. Forgive me, I beg you. But betrayal leaves a wound that no plea can heal." Rodrigo's voice was cold. "You were given trust, Heinrich, and you sold it for scraps of gold. Do you not see? It is not the gold that has burned away. It is your honor, your soul." News spread quickly through the town. The once celebrated goldsmith was unmasked as a fraud. Customers withdrew, apprentices fled, and neighbors who once admired him now avoided even meeting his eyes. The merchant seized what remained of his property, reclaiming what was his, and left Heinrich with nothing but shame. Day after day, Heinrich sat in his empty workshop, the silence heavier than any gold he had stolen. The tools that once sang with the sound of creation now lay still, gathering dust. He wandered the marketplace, but no one dared to hand him even a coin. His hands, once trusted to craft beauty, were now seen as the hands of a thief. As winter deepened, Heinrich's world collapsed further. Creditors came knocking, his family suffered hunger, and the wealth he once dreamed of crumbled like ash in his palms. Each night, he stared into the darkness, haunted by Rodrigo's words. "It is not the gold that has burned away. It is your honor, your soul." The story of Heinrich became a warning whispered among merchants and craftsmen alike. Greed is a fire that consumes everything: wealth, reputation, and even the heart of a man. And so, from the height of admiration to the depth of disgrace, Heinrich learned that a single act of deceit can destroy a lifetime of trust. His fall was not swift like a lightning strike, but slow and relentless, like a fire smoldering until only ashes remained. The chapter ends with Heinrich standing in his empty workshop, staring at the cold furnace, realizing that the fire he once commanded had consumed not gold, but himself. Chapter 3. The Last Days in the Old Workshop. Winter had passed, yet the cold seemed to linger inside Giovanni's goldsmith workshop. The pale light of dawn filtered through the cracked windows, falling on the dusty tools and reflecting the cracks on the walls like traces of a life gone by. The smell of dust, metal, and ashes still hung in the air, reminding him of everything he had lost. Giovanni curled up on the old wooden chair, his trembling hands resting on piles of debt papers. Each number, each name, was a dagger reminding him of his shattered reputation, his lost wealth, and the brilliance of a life once admired. He remembered nights spent by the glowing furnace, when his skilled hands had crafted rings, necklaces, and glittering jewelry. Now the fire was cold, and ash covered the floor. Isabella, his wife, stood silently by the window, holding their youngest child. Her eyes were no longer filled with satisfaction or pride, only weariness and patience. Their two older children played nearby, wearing tattered clothes and barefoot on the cold floor, yet faint smiles still flickered across their faces, a fragile glimmer amid hardship. One afternoon, the setting sun cast red-orange light through the window, painting the walls with patches of light and shadow. Giovanni rose slowly and shuffled to the old furnace, his hand trembling as it touched the ashes. The burnt smell lingered, but the fire was gone. He bent down and picked up a small piece of ash, recalling all his wrong choices. Feeling the emptiness overwhelm his heart, he gazed out the window and saw a group of people passing by, laughing and calling to each other. His children watched them from the doorway, eyes wide, tiny hands clutching their worn clothes. Giovanni sank back onto the chair by the window, sighing quietly. The sight, the separation between his children and the world outside, pierced his heart. Isabella placed the youngest child on the floor and looked at her husband, then quietly turned to prepare dinner. Giovanni watched her, recognizing the burden, patience, and endurance she had carried for the family all these years. A deep regret rose inside him, unspoken and inexpressible. Days passed slowly. Giovanni wandered the workshop, silently cleaning old tools, looking at pieces of gold and jewelry now covered in dust. His children played nearby, their innocent eyes too young to understand fully, yet sensing the heavy, silent atmosphere that hung over the family. One early morning, Giovanni sat by the window, hands resting on the ashes of the furnace. He watched his children sleeping peacefully, realizing that life would go on, even though he and his family had lost so much. The sunlight fell across the ash-covered floor, faintly glimmering, reflecting the silhouettes of the children and the old workshop. He closed his eyes slowly, feeling each breath, hearing the small sounds of life, the birds outside, Isabella's footsteps, the soft laughter of the children, meld into a rare moment of stillness. The ashes covered the floor, silent and cold, yet witnessing all that had once burned brightly and was now gone. Isabella and the children stood nearby, saying nothing, merely watching Giovanni one last time. No tears, no cries, just heavy silence. The children did not fully comprehend what had happened, but in their eyes, the image of the ash-filled workshop, the extinguished furnace, and the figure of their father would be etched forever, a scene both tragic and vivid. Outside the window, the morning light illuminated the busy streets. Inside the workshop, silence prevailed. Only the shadow of the frail old man beside the ashes remained, a natural, simple, yet profound ending. No explanations, no moral summaries, only the final scene of a life lived, leaving emotions lingering in the reader's mind like ash after a fire. And there, in the old ash-filled workshop, Giovanni's story quietly came to an end. What had once been brilliant had passed, leaving emptiness in its wake. Yet in that very scene, everything was conveyed: loss, regret, and the calm in the final moments. A living ending, both natural and profound, allowing the reader to feel and reflect without a single word of moral being spoken. Story 4. The Dutiful Son, Blessings That Never Fade. Chapter 1. When a son's love transcends poverty. Subhuti lived with his mother, Mrs. Margaret, in a small wooden house on the outskirts of Edinburgh. The streets were paved with old stones, moss creeping along the steps, and in the early morning, a thin mist hung over every window. The house was worn and creaky, the tiles clattered in the wind. Yet, for Subhuti, it was everything, the only home he had with his elderly mother. Every morning, Subhuti rose before dawn. He swept the yard, cooked warm oatmeal, toasted bread, and spread strawberry jam for his mother. "My son, you're up early again," her frail yet gentle voice asked. Subhuti smiled, wiping sweat from his brow. "I want you to have a good breakfast, Mom. Even if we're poor, you deserve to be happy." Though he earned his living through small jobs, delivering newspapers, washing cars, helping in cafes, Subhuti never complained. Friends teased, "Aren't you tired? You can barely make enough to live, and you still take care of your mother?" He only smiled. "If I don't care for her, who will?" Every small act, picking fallen leaves, preparing meals, comforting his mother when she was weak, reflected Subhuti's deep filial love. One drizzly afternoon, Subhuti received news from his uncle in London. Startwell, a fast-growing tech company, was seeking a young manager, offering a salary many times higher than Subhuti's current income. Accepting the offer would mean moving to London and stepping into a world of opportunity. Subhuti held the phone, feeling a heavy pang in his chest. He looked at his mother through the window. She was sitting on the old chair, her hands trembling as she handled vegetables. "Mom, I have a chance to go far away, work in London." He hesitated, torn. Mrs. Margaret looked at him, her eyes gentle but tinged with worry. "You've cared for me all this time. I know you understand what it means to be dutiful." That evening, Subhuti wandered the empty streets. The cold wind blew through the dried leaves scattered along the cobblestones. If he went, his mother would be alone. If he stayed, the chance to change his life might pass. His heart ached, recalling the image of her huddled under the warm glow of the street lamp. He knew the decision was far from simple. In the days that followed, Subhuti realized balancing filial duty and ambition was no easy task. One afternoon, while wrapping vegetables at the market, he ran into his old friend Liam, now a successful entrepreneur. "Subhuti, you're still here? Going to London would change your life. I hesitated like you once did." Subhuti gave a faint smile, eyes distant. "I know, but some things cannot be abandoned." Then, one rainy afternoon, as Subhuti prepared dinner for his mother, a luxury car stopped in front of the house. A man in a sharp suit stepped out. "You must be Subhuti. I represent Startwell. We are inviting you to London immediately. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Subhuti froze, his heart pounding, eyes fixed on his mother. She remained seated, the warm yellow light casting shadows on her wrinkled but tender face. He looked at her trembling hands, recalling every moment of care, every smile, every tear. A cold gust of wind swept past, sending his hair fluttering. Each heartbeat seemed to stretch endlessly. Inside him, filial duty and ambition wrestled violently. If he stepped into that car, he would leave everything, his mother, the house, his childhood memories. Yet the future would unfold brilliantly. If he stayed, he would honor his duty, but the opportunity might be lost forever. Subhuti took a deep breath, gripping his shirt, standing at the crossroads of his life. The world around him seemed to pause, leaving only the rain on the old roof and the pounding of his heart. His mind stretched to the limit, caught between two worlds, ambition and duty, love and desire. He knew every next step would change not only his life, but also the fate of the mother he cherished. Subhuti stood there, the wind and rain swirling around him, eyes on his mother, heart heavy yet resolute. A major decision loomed, and in that moment, everything seemed to freeze. Chapter 2. When Dreams and Duty Collide. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the old wooden window, casting a warm glow on Subhuti's weary face. He sat on a chair near the kitchen, hands trembling as he sipped his tea, still unsettled after the enticing offer from Startwell. London, distant, full of promise, A place of wealth and opportunity was calling him, yet the small house, his mother's smiles, her fragile breaths, lingered heavily in his mind. "Have you made a decision, Subhuti?" his mother's gentle voice asked, tinged with concern. Subhuti turned to her, meeting her eyes, shining with love but edged with worry. He forced a smile. "I'm not sure yet. I just want to make the right choice." Everything seemed stretched to its limit. Inside him, images of a glittering London office, broad streets, and numbers dancing in his bank account mingled with memories of his mother at the stove, hands trembling as she cooked, her soft laughter, her quiet guidance through his childhood. His chest tightened with the weight of the choice before him. One afternoon, while tidying the yard, Liam appeared, smiling broadly. "Still hesitating? London is waiting, Subhuti. People like you don't get opportunities like this often. I went through the same stage. If you don't seize it, you'll regret it forever." Subhuti remained silent. He knew Liam was right. Just stepping into that car would mean leaving everything. The house, his mother, childhood memories, the familiar streets of Edinburgh. But if he went, would he be happy or lonely in the moments? Away from her, every step, every breath felt heavy. Night fell, rain pouring over Edinburgh. Subhuti stood by the window, watching the city glitter in the streetlights, heart torn. Part of him yearned for opportunity, for freedom, to prove he could rise above his circumstances. Yet another part dreaded leaving his mother alone, feared abandoning her in those vulnerable days. He recalled every memory of his childhood, Margaret walking him to school in the rain, her warm hands tending to every worn-out belonging, every gentle lesson. "Subhuti, if you work hard, your future will be bright. But never forget to honor your parents." Those words echoed in his mind, making him take a deep breath, heart strained to its limits. A few days later, the Startwell representative called again. "Subhuti, the opportunity won't wait. We need your decision today. London is ready to welcome you." The voice, warm yet insistent, seemed to pull him out of his familiar world into a new storm. Subhuti stood on the yard, phone in hand, raindrops dotting his head. His heart felt torn apart, mind chaotic. He imagined boarding a train, watching the small house shrink in the distance, hearing his mother call his name, yet also seeing a brilliant future open before him. Each vision cut through him like a blade, suffocating. In that moment, he saw his mother step into the yard, shielding herself from the rain, eyes soft yet piercing, as if reading his every thought. "Don't let anything make you regret it," she said, voice trembling. Subhuti stepped closer, gripping her hands, heart melting under the weight of duty. Hours passed as he wrestled with his thoughts, one side promising a life-changing opportunity, the other tethered to love and responsibility. He paced the room, eyes returning to the window where the rain fell, imagining the dazzling London beyond, yet returning again to the kitchen where his mother prepared a simple dinner, hands trembling but determined. Every sense was heightened. The sound of rain on the roof, the flickering streetlights, the smell of dinner cooking, blending into a mental pressure that seemed unbearable. He breathed heavily, body tense, eyes wide, searching his mother's for guidance. Then, a sound outside, the luxury car had returned. The representative stood there, hand extended, inviting him. Time seemed to stop. Subhuti froze, heart racing, eyes darting between his mother's trembling hands holding a warm cup and the shiny metal of the car waiting. Subhuti realized that this moment would decide the rest of his life. Step into the car and leave everything behind, with a dazzling future awaiting. Stay and honor his filial duty, but risk losing the chance forever. His chest tightened, nearly suffocating. Rain fell in torrents, wind howled, and Subhuti stood there, heart and mind torn, every second stretching into eternity. In that instant, he understood that filial devotion was not just words, but actions, choices that endure the test of time. He looked at his mother, tears sliding down his cheeks, her hands trembling, but eyes full of trust and love. Subhuti knew that no matter how bright or tempting the world outside, the right decision was to remain by her side, resisting temptation and the lure of wealth. He grasped his shirt tightly, bowing his head into his mother's hands. A fierce yet calming surge of relief and resolve coursed through him. The rain poured, The wind swirled around the small yard, but inside that little house, love and duty radiated a power words could scarcely capture. Subhuti knew the choice he had made would leave a mark on his life forever. Chapter 3: When Filial Devotion Opens the Door to Happiness. Subhuti remained in the small wooden house on the outskirts of Edinburgh. The rain had passed, morning mist still lingered on the roof tiles, yet the space was filled with the gentle light of dawn. Every breath of his mother, Mrs. Margaret, every soft smile became an unwavering source of motivation for him. Each day, Subhuti rose before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, and cared for his mother with absolute dedication. The neighbors had grown accustomed to seeing him busy around the small house, hands calloused, yet eyes bright with purpose. They often said to each other, "That young man, Subhuti, is remarkable. Even in poverty, he lives with such extraordinary filial devotion." One day, while shopping for vegetables at the market, Subhuti met an elderly man, Mr. Henry, a retired businessman well known in the neighborhood. "I've heard about you, Subhuti. The way you care for your mother earns the respect of everyone around. You will never lack blessings in this life or the next." Subhuti was silent. He had never thought that his small daily acts, cooking meals, cleaning, caring for his mother, could be noticed and admired by others. Mr. Henry grasped his hands warmly, eyes kind. "Keep doing what you're doing. You will witness extraordinary things happen. Those who honor their parents cultivate blessings that never fade." Those words echoed in Subhuti's mind. He felt a gentle joy, a happiness that could not be measured in money or status. Life remained challenging, but in every meal, every glance from his mother, he saw the true value of life. One summer afternoon, sunlight streaming through the trees, Subhuti received a letter from London. Startwell still remembered him and offered a higher position with a generous salary. He read the letter, heart racing, but his gaze drifted to the yard, where his mother tended the plants. He smiled softly. "I don't need to go anywhere," he whispered. His decision was not out of fear or abandoning dreams, but from love and responsibility toward his mother. Years passed, and Subhuti stayed by his mother's side, weathering challenges with steadfast resolve. The neighborhood increasingly respected him. Warm meals, shared laughter, cold, rainy days, all became evidence of the power of filial devotion. He gradually realized that true happiness was not found in bank accounts, but in the peace and warmth one could provide to loved ones. As Margaret aged gracefully, Subhuti witnessed many small wonders in life. Once, he helped a young family in the neighborhood, teaching them how to care for one another, how to live kindly. His actions spread goodwill, earning him admiration and affection. Subhuti reminded himself, filial devotion is not only caring for one's parents, but also opening your heart to others, sowing blessings through deeds. Then, the day came when Margaret peacefully breathed her last in Subhuti's arms. He did not cry out of grief or regret. He cried because he had lived rightly, having fulfilled his filial duty completely. The neighborhood fell silent. Neighbors came to pay respects, moved and inspired by Subhuti, the son who had never abandoned his mother, despite all worldly temptations. Many years later, Subhuti became a successful man, but not because of the opportunity in London or wealth. He earned the respect of the people around him, and his own small family lived in harmony and happiness. In his heart, he always remembered Mr. Henry's words. Those who honor their parents cultivate blessings that never fade. Subhuti taught his children and grandchildren about filial love. Filial devotion is the root of blessings. When you love and care for your parents, those blessings follow you throughout your life, never to be taken away. These lessons passed down from generation to generation became a guiding principle for the family. On peaceful afternoons, Subhuti would sit by the window, looking out over the quiet street. He recalled each day caring for his mother, every drop of sweat, every smile. Those memories were not merely the past, but a treasure of the spirit, a source of strength for all future challenges. He understood that filial devotion had opened the door to true happiness, not in wealth or fame, but in the heart and respect of those around him. In that moment, Subhuti smiled, knowing that his steadfast choices had sown blessings that would never fade, for himself, for his mother, and for generations to come. Story 5. The Power of Words, Blessings and Misfortunes Born from the Mouth. Chapter 1. When Words Sow Storms. Mrs. Edith lived in a small stone house in the village of Dunmore, Scotland, where cobblestone streets twisted between red-roofed houses and pine forests. She was over 70, her hair silvered, skin wrinkled, yet her words remained as sharp as razors. No one in the village dared approach when she appeared. "You dare let weeds grow in the garden? Do you even know how much I hate weeds?" she shouted at a little neighbor girl picking up dry leaves. Edith's voice echoed down the cobblestone street, startling passers-by who hurried into the shadows. She had long been accustomed to asserting her authority with words. Each sentence was like fire, capable of scorching the listener's mood. The neighbor girl held back tears, hurrying past, eyes lowered, not daring to look at her. Not only children, but adults also avoided crossing Edith's path. "If she gets angry, no one knows what she'll do," whispered a villager. "It's better to stay away." Even her own family could not escape her wrath. Her grandson, Michael, 16 years old, once dared speak against her wishes and was immediately berated. "Michael, are you my grandchild? Do you know how I raised you? You dare defy me." Michael shrank back, tears welling in his eyes. Yet he did not dare reply. Each encounter turned the household into a tense storm. His mother, Edith's daughter, occasionally tried to explain, but received only scolding, blame, and harsh words in return. Edith had a habit of roaming the village, never missing an opportunity to yell. If she saw a door slightly ajar, she would step in. "Why is it so messy here? Who taught you to live like this?" Her low but piercing voice left homeowners red-faced, heads bowed. Even innocent passers-by on the cobblestone street often got caught in her tirade. "How do you walk so clumsily? Keep your manners." Her voice resounded through the quiet afternoon, making the little village seem to lose its breath. Yet Edith's power of speech brought loneliness as well. One evening, she sat alone in the living room, the yellow light casting shadows across her wrinkled face. The room was eerily silent. No one dared approach. No one wanted to hear her harsh words anymore. Even her grandchildren's eyes avoided hers, fear replacing affection. One cold evening, Michael stepped out of his room, whispering to his sister, "Why does she always want people to fear her? We can't talk, we can't laugh freely." His sister shivered, lowering her head. Edith's harsh words did not only hurt others, they alienated her own family. What Edith did not realize was that every word was like a seed planted in the hearts of others. Those seeds did not grow into kindness, but into tension, anxiety, and sometimes quiet resentment. Her grandchildren and the villagers began avoiding her, giving her the power of her words, but unintentionally creating an unbridgeable distance. Then one morning, as sunlight filtered through the curtains, Edith stepped onto the street, voice still sharp as ever. Yet all the doors around her were shut. Laughter, greetings, friendly eyes, all gone, replaced by emptiness and avoidance. She turned slowly, realizing that the power of words, when sowed with malice, could return to engulf the one who spoke them. Edith stood in the silent street, the drizzle just having stopped, wind tossing her silver hair. In that moment, she felt a deep solitude. No one was near, no laughter, no affectionate glances, only herself and the lonely power of her harsh words. Chapter 2. When Alienation Becomes a Storm. No one in the village of Dunmore dared approach Mrs. Edith's small stone house. Every time she appeared on the cobblestone street, children scattered, and adults pressed themselves against walls or turned away. She had become an invisible shadow over the village, her voice like a storm sweeping through every relationship. At first, she did not realize the harm her harsh words caused. But subtle gestures, wary glances, and half-hearted greetings from the villagers began to create an invisible void around her. One autumn afternoon, the cold wind whistling through the street, Edith stood at her door and shouted, "Who dares walk past here without bowing?" No one answered. Only yellow leaves fell relentlessly, and the wind seemed to whisper that the power of words could also turn back on its speaker. Her family could not escape the effects either. Michael, her grandson, once a cheerful boy, now remained quietly in the corner, always fearful of an unexpected outburst. His younger sister, Lily, avoided entering the living room whenever possible. Even their mother, Edith's daughter, no longer had the courage to face her mother directly. The house grew cold and heavy. Meals were silent, filled only with the clatter of dishes and soft sighs. One evening, as Edith passed by the window, she saw Michael standing silently at the study table, eyes fixed on the floor. "Why aren't you greeting me today, Michael?" she yelled. Michael flinched, heart racing, unable to speak. Edith sighed in frustration at the silence, not realizing that years of harsh words had caused her grandson to withdraw completely. Even neighbors once friendly began to avoid her. Mr. Henry, who had previously praised Subhoodie's diligence in another tale, shook his head. "Mrs. Edith, your words make people afraid and keep them away. They no longer want to be near you." But his advice fell on deaf ears. Edith still believed that fear equaled power, and she yelled even more to assert her authority. The village slowly fell into an eerie silence. Shops closed early, children no longer played outdoors, adults stopped gathering. Small celebrations, conversations by the fireplace, all disappeared. The only sounds were the whine through the rooftops and Edith's solitary footsteps on the cobblestones. One day, Michael and Lily went to the market, trying to avoid her path. But Edith appeared, voice booming. "Where are you going without telling me? Don't you care what I want?" Michael lowered his eyes, his sister holding his hand, hearts pounding. The villagers watched silently, unwilling to intervene. Every action felt like a silent storm, each step of Edith sowing fear. Inside her house, Edith failed to see how her harsh words had spread, affecting even her grandchildren. Michael and Lily began struggling at school. Friends avoided them out of fear of association. One afternoon, a teacher called their mother. The students often talk about Mrs. Edith, and it has caused Michael and Lily to be isolated. They are affected by an adult's words. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, powerless to intervene when the harsh words came from her own mother. Even a simple stroll around the village pond became an ordeal. Walkers and joggers carefully avoided her. Solitude surrounded her. The birds' songs, the flowing water, all seemed silent, reflecting the emptiness birthed by her cruel words. Each step she took on the cobblestones, each sigh echoed through the emptiness, highlighting the unbridgeable distance she had created. One light rain evening, she stepped onto the street to scold a group of children playing hide-and-seek. As her shouts rang out, the children scattered in tears. The villagers stood silently, watching but not daring to speak. In that moment, the power of her words became fully evident. Fear spread, grandchildren shrank away, yet she herself felt the solitude creeping in, like a storm sweeping through her own soul. And then, the climax arrived on a gloomy afternoon. Edith stood in the middle of the main street, wind blowing fiercely, golden leaves swirling around her. The house was devoid of laughter, the street eerily empty. She shouted as usual, but no one answered. No friendly eyes, no voices, no smiles. Only emptiness, and her standing alone amidst it. In that instant, Edith vaguely realized that the power of words, when sown with malice, could isolate the speaker themselves. The anger and authority she once prided herself on now resonated only as an echo through the empty street. She stood there, silent among the wind and leaves, sensing a deep, profound loneliness. Chapter 3: When Kind Words Bring Peace. Time passed, and Edith grew older, her silver hair now even paler, her skin wrinkled like old parchment. Her small stone house on the cobblestone street remained, but silence filled it so completely that anyone passing by could feel the loneliness. Not a child dared play near the door. Not a single neighbor offered a friendly smile. The distance she had sown with harsh words over the years now clung to her like a heavy cloak, impossible to remove. One week morning, as sunlight filtered through the trees, Edith looked out the window. Outside, the street was still as quiet as ever. Leaves fell, shadows passed, but no one stopped or glanced at her. She felt a profound loneliness, realizing for the first time the consequences of her harsh words over the years. The shouting, the scolding, the heavy reprimands, none commanded respect or admiration anymore, only invisible distance and separation. Her grandchildren, Michael and Lily, had grown. Michael, once a cheerful boy, had become a quiet young man, always cautious of what Edith might say. Lily, the gentle little girl of years past, now avoided conversation, seldom smiling. No one wanted to come near, to share joy or sorrow with her. Edith looked at them, but her power and influence were gone. In her final days, Edith began to reflect on her actions. Once, when Michael silently poured her a glass of water, she felt a strange surge of emotion, regret mingled with emptiness. She realized that years of harsh words had pushed her grandchildren and the villagers away, creating an unbreakable circle of isolation. In contrast, on the other side of the street, another elderly woman, Margaret, lived at the same age but very differently. Margaret always spoke gently, comforting and encouraging those around her. Children loved her, and adults respected her. When she walked through the village, people smiled and greeted her, naturally harmonizing with her kind words. Every word Margaret spoke, even simple ones, was like a seed planted in hearts, growing into kindness, joy, and connection. Seeing that difference, Edith was silent. She realized that the power of words was not in making others afraid or submissive, but in bringing peace, connection, and happiness. Every harsh word was a seed of suffering, while every kind word was a seed of blessing. She began to regret all the cruel words she had planted over the years, words that had created loneliness and pain, not only for others, but also for herself. One summer afternoon, Edith called Michael and Lily to her window. Her voice trembled but was sincere. I am sorry. My children. The words I spoke before, they hurt you. I don't want you to fear me anymore. Michael and Lily were surprised, but their eyes gradually softened. For the first time, Edith's kind words created connection, no longer fear or tension. In the following days, Edith tried to speak more gently, though years of harsh habits were deeply ingrained. The villagers still kept their distance. But some children began to approach again, and a few neighbors cautiously greeted her. Edith understood that she could not erase the seeds of cruelty she had sown, but she could plant seeds of kindness, little by little, with every word, every gesture. When Edith took her final breath, there was no crowd, no chatter, only silence and the distance she had once created. Yet the seeds of kindness she had planted in her last days, though small, opened a chance for her family and community to slowly revive connection and trust. Michael and Lily, though still carrying traces of childhood fear, began to learn gentle, caring words, vowing not to repeat cruelty. Speech karma is the cause of suffering. Every word we speak is a seed planted into the future. By speaking with kindness, we not only bring happiness to others, but also cultivate blessings for ourselves. Harsh words, no matter how powerful temporarily, ultimately isolate the speaker, while kind words foster respect, love, and enduring connection. And in Done More, the story of Edith became a quiet reminder. Words can create storms or peace, and it is up to us which seeds we choose to plant into the future. Story 6. A Love Left Unfinished. A Bond of Fate, Yet Unresolved. Chapter 1. When Hearts Are Forbidden. Vienna, autumn. The cobblestone streets stretching under the sunset, golden leaves falling along the sidewalks. In this city of art, among ancient castles and cozy street cafes, a love story began to blossom, yet it was constrained by invisible barriers. Sophia, a young woman from an aristocratic family, with glossy brown hair and deep blue eyes like an autumn lake, often strolled through Stephansplatz, where street performers played classical music. She met Alexander, a talented young violinist from a middle-class family, whose radiant smile could make anyone pause in admiration. I've watched you play every afternoon. Your music feels like it carries me to another world, Sophia whispered, blushing as she stood beneath a tree in the square. Alexander smiled, taking her hand. Sophia, you make my heart restless. Every time I look at you, every melody becomes sweeter. Afternoons passed with music and tender glances. They wandered the cobblestone streets, enjoyed coffee in small cafes, shared dreams, and whispered secrets. Their love was passionate and consuming, drawing admiration from anyone who witnessed it. But not everything was idyllic. Sophia's family, deeply valuing status and reputation, could not accept. Alexander, a young man from a middle-class background, with no noble blood. One evening, in the grand living room of the family mansion, Sophia's mother said coldly, "Sophia, he is not suitable for you. Our family must maintain its traditions. You must understand that love is temporary, but status and reputation are forever." Sophia trembled, tears streaming down her face. "Mother, I love him. He doesn't care about status, only about me." Her words could not penetrate the invisible wall in her mother's heart. Her mother's gaze was rigid. "You must stop. If you do not obey, you will bear the consequences." Alexander knew their love, blossoming amidst the beautiful autumn days, stood on the edge of a precipice. Every encounter with Sophia tightened a knot in his chest, because they knew her family would never approve. They met in secret, exchanging fleeting touches, stolen glances, and hurried kisses beneath the amber streetlights. One rainy evening, they hid in a small cafe, where the soft sound of piano music filled the air. Alexander held Sophia's hands. "Sophia, if your family does not allow it, we must find a way to never be apart." Sophia fell silent, tears blending with the rain outside the window. I cannot live without you. But I also cannot disappoint my mother." Days passed, each meeting torn between love and duty. Every encounter was a mixture of longing and fear of being discovered. Villagers whispered as they saw the young couple ducking into narrow cobblestone alleys, hand in hand, yet eyes full of worry. Sophia felt the mounting pressure in her chest. Every family meal was a trial. Her mother scrutinized every movement, every glance, leaving her unable to laugh freely, unable to speak words of love openly. Alexander, despite his deep affection, felt powerless against the invisible barrier. One afternoon, they stood by the Danube River, wind blowing fiercely, golden leaves swirling, sunset painting the water in warm hues. Alexander took Sophia's hand. "If we cannot be together in this life, promise me, in our hearts, in our souls, that we will meet again elsewhere, where there is no prohibition or prejudice." Sophia gazed deeply into his eyes, her heart breaking with bittersweet pain. I promise. No matter how long it takes, in another life we will find each other." In that moment, the wind and the river seemed to beat in rhythm with their hearts. Their love burned intensely, yet despair lingered. Every glance, every touch, every whispered promise carried a pain that pierced their souls, for they knew family and social expectations would never relent. As evening fell, they stood on the bridge, streetlights reflecting on the water. Alexander whispered softly, "Sophia, if there is no other way." Sophia understood, heart aching, yet despair engulfed her. The two stood silently, looking at the flowing water beneath, as if watching their lives drift away, unable to hold on. No one around, only them and the cruel hand of fate, pushing them toward a final choice. And in that moment, as the wind tousled their hair, and the golden lights shimmered on the water, their passionate love paused at the ultimate climax, a moment of unbearable tension where they had to choose between survival and love, duty and desire. Chapter 2: The Vow Under the Moonlight. Night had fallen over Vienna, silver moonlight spreading across red-tiled rooftops and shimmering on the Danube. The city was silent, except for the wind and the rustling of leaves. Sophia and Alexander sneaked out of their homes, avoiding prying eyes. They walked through cobblestone alleys where lovers had met before, where the faint sound of a violin drifted through the air, blending with the flowing water. "Alexander, I can't take this anymore," Sophia whispered, gripping his coat tightly. Tears mixed with the moonlight reflecting on the water. "Every day, it feels like my heart is being torn into pieces. We can't keep living like this, always hiding, always afraid." Alexander held her close, gazing into her eyes. "I know, Sophia. I can't live without you either. But if this world won't let us be together, then at least we will go together, never leaving each other, no matter what." They reached a deserted bridge, where the moonlight reflected on the calm river. The wind whispered through the branches as if carrying both blessings and sorrow. Alexander took a thin silk ribbon from his pocket and handed it to Sophia. "Keep this. It's our vow. No matter the world, no matter the time, No matter fate, we will find each other again. Sophia clutched the ribbon, tears streaming down her face, her heart aching. I promise. No matter how many lifetimes it takes, we will meet again. No one, nothing, can ever separate us. Alexander sighed and guided her to sit on the bridge steps. Tell me, what scares you the most? He asked gently. Sophia stared at the cold river, voice trembling. I'm afraid of losing you, afraid of living a life without laughter, without hugs, without hearing you say I love you every day. But if my family finds out, they will separate us forever. Alexander pressed her to his chest. I'm afraid too, but we can't live in that fear anymore. This love is too strong to be denied. They stood up, hand in hand, moving to the center of the bridge. Each step felt unbearably heavy, leading them toward the final choice. Alexander said, Sophia, if there's no other way, come with me. No one can separate us once we've chosen this path. Sophia looked deeply into his eyes, heartbreaking. I'm ready, but promise me, no matter what, our love will endure beyond life and death. Alexander nodded, tears welling up. I promise. Our love will never fade. They paused, listening to the wind, the river, and each other's heartbeat. Every second felt endless. Sophia shivered as Alexander placed a hand on her chest, feeling the rapid beat of her heart. Do you feel it? My heart, it's only for you. Alexander closed his eyes, voice trembling. I know. I feel it. I only have you too. The wind blew stronger, golden leaves swirling above them. Alexander gripped Sophia's hand and led her closer to the railing. Now it's time. There's no fear left, only us. Sophia embraced him tightly, voice choked. Alexander, let's go together. Even in death, I want to be with you. They kissed for the last time, then fell into the cold waters of the Danube. The river enveloped them, chilling to the bone, but their hands remained clasped. Sophia felt Alexander's heartbeat in her final breaths, as if imprinting their undying love. The current carried them silently past rooftops and under the moonlight. Each wave seemed to echo their vow. In another life, they would find each other, in whatever form, wherever fate allowed. Both sank into the stillness, yet their love burned bright. No words were needed. Their hearts had become one, and the moon, the river, the falling leaves all bore witness, a love both beautiful and tragic, unforgettable to anyone who might see it. As the water carried them away, the city remained silent. No one knew what had happened, only the moonlight reflecting on the river and the echo of their vow, waiting for another chance, in another lifetime, for the two souls to meet again. Chapter 3 Reunited in Another Life, Love and Karma. Years had passed. Vienna had changed. Rooftops repaired, yet the cobblestone streets still carried the rhythm of the old city. Alexander and Sophia, in another life, crossed paths once more, but they were no longer the carefree young lovers of before. Fate had tested them again, but this time in a different form, a different setting. Alexander now played his violin in the town square, his melodies deep and filled with longing, drawing passers-by into the beauty of his music. Among the crowd, Sophia appeared, wearing a bright red coat, her long brown hair flowing in the wind. Their eyes met, hearts stirred by a feeling both familiar and strangely distant. Sophia? Alexander's voice trembled, uncertain if this was truly her. Sophia froze, her heartbeat quickening, her eyes wide. Alexander, is it really you? She felt the familiarity, yet old memories were fragmented, fleeting like mist. They approached each other, hands touching, but it was different now. There was no freedom of youth. No secret rendezvous beneath moonlight, only a strange, binding tension. Both understood that their love was still deep, yet the path ahead was full of obstacles and limitations. Sophia held Alexander's hand, voice trembling. We meet again, but why does my heart feel so heavy? Alexander sighed, watching people pass by, then lowered his gaze. Perhaps karma is teaching us a lesson. We meet again, but we cannot be together freely. Loving each other doesn't guarantee a lifetime together. In the following days, they tried to be close, walking the streets they unconsciously remembered. Yet everything was constrained. Sophia belonged to a powerful family, and Alexander had to make his living through music, lacking the social standing to be accepted by her family. Every conversation was a mixture of love and helplessness. One autumn afternoon, they sat on the steps leading to the Danube, the cold wind blowing, golden leaves drifting. Alexander looked at Sophia, eyes full of sorrow. Sophia, we meet again, but this love cannot be complete. I have to let go. Sophia clutched his hand, tears falling into the river below. I don't want to let go. But I know. Fate seems to teach us that love isn't just about holding on, but also knowing when to release. They sat together in silence, watching the river flow gently. Moments of love intertwined. With pain, yet both understood. They were given the chance to reunite, not for a life together, but to learn to let go and treasure every moment. In the following years, Alexander continued to play his violin on the streets. Sophia lived within her influential family, but they no longer met openly. Every glance, every fleeting smile carried the quiet depth of love and regret and understanding. That love persists, transformed from passionate desire to appreciation and release. One autumn day, Alexander played near the riverbank, and Sophia walked past. They exchanged only a smile, eyes full of unspoken love and melancholy. No words were needed. Everything was understood. Their love endured, though not in possession, but in respect and release. Sophia thought to herself, this love belongs to no one. It is a lesson, karma. Even if we cannot be together, it teaches me to value, to forgive, to love without attachment. Alexander felt the same, his heart calming. Life does not always give us fulfillment, but to meet again, to love again, is a blessing. And to let go, that is growth. And so, they continued on their separate paths, their love still present in glances, in memories, in music, and in fleeting smiles. It was not lifelong happiness, but a precious lesson on karma and love, on loving with compassion and release, not merely clinging to obsession. The world moved on, autumn leaves drifting across Vienna, but the story of Alexander and Sophia remained, a love that transcended time, incomplete in form, yet perfected in spirit. They had learned that true love does not always grant what we desire, but teaches us to grow, to understand, and to release at the right time. Story 7. King Bimbisara, Wealth Cannot Be Carried Away. Chapter 1. The king who possessed an entire world. In the prosperous land of Magadha, at the foot of the Gajrakuta mountain in ancient India, there once lived a monarch praised across the entire subcontinent. Bimbisara. It was said that in the bustling markets, where Persian traders mingled with wandering ascetics along the Ganges, people only needed to mention his name, and everyone would nod in agreement. He is the wealthiest man alive, unmatched by any. The Magadha Empire under Bimbisara's rule flourished not only with military might, but also with treasures beyond measure, gold, silver, pearls, and gemstones stored in countless vaults. Granaries overflowed with grain, wine infused with lotus flowers filled entire cellars, and stables housed war horses imported from faraway lands in the west. Within the palace of Rajagaha, ceilings were gilded in gold, hallways were lined with silk carpets from Varanasi, and even stone pillars glittered with inlaid lapis lazuli. The common people whispered to one another, if wealth alone could tip the balance of heaven and earth, surely Magadha would already hold the skies. From a young age, Bimbisara had proven himself a sharp, capable king. He expanded his territories with cunning strategy and secured loyalty by rewarding his people. And yet, despite all the glory, a vague emptiness still lingered in his heart, never filled. One morning, as he stood on the palace balcony, watching sunlight scatter across gemstones like sparks of fire, Bimbisara sighed. How much is enough? How much will ever bring me peace? A courtier attending him replied at once, Your Majesty, subjects from 4 directions bow before you. Treasures overflow from your vaults, and wise men surround you. What could you possibly still lack? The king only smiled faintly, his eyes tinged with sorrow. At banquets of opulence, as musicians plucked the veena and golden goblets brimmed with wine, he often sat in silence, unmoved by the merriment. Once, the song of a court singer echoed through the hall. Wealth is but morning dew, radiant, yet vanishing so soon. Her voice struck him like a sudden tremor. But he brushed it aside, drowning again in fleeting pleasures. During one royal audience, a merchant from Bactria presented his tribute, then dared to speak. Your Majesty, wealth you have in abundance. But did you know, in the Western lands, there is talk of a wise ascetic, a holy man teaching the path to liberation? They say even your countless treasures cannot compare with a single word of his teaching. The entire court erupted in outrage. A minister shouted, "Insolence! How dare anyone compare a wandering monk to the riches of the Magadha Empire?" But Bimbisara sat still, eyes glinting with something unspoken. The words pierced through to the very depths of his heart. That night, beneath the palace lamps, he lay awake. He recalled battles won, conquests achieved, mountains of gold amassed, and asked himself, if I were to die tomorrow, what would I carry with me, other than empty hands? The beat of the night watch drum echoed through the dark, each strike sounding like a reminder from the unseen. Another morning, sitting beside Queen Kosala Devi by the lotus pond, Bimbisara spoke with a heavy voice. What do you think if one day all of this were to vanish? The queen tilted her head gently. Your Majesty, everything in this world fades with time. But what you leave in the hearts of your people, that alone endures. Her words weighed deeply on him. Looking into the still water, he saw his reflection flickering, yet no trace of peace shone in those eyes. Within the king's heart, a new longing began to stir, not for more riches, but for something beyond them all, something that could finally still his restless soul. Rumors spread of an awakened one, a wandering ascetic named Gautama, a man who renounced his throne to seek the ultimate truth. They said he owned nothing but a saffron robe and a begging bowl, yet even kings and merchants bowed before him. A hidden tide rose in Bimbisara's mind. He yearned to meet this sage, yet a fierce struggle raged within. On one side, the glittering throne, on the other, the invisible call of truth. That night, as wind swept across Vulture's Peak, the king stood alone under the star-filled sky. He whispered, as though to himself, if there truly is a path beyond all of this, I must find it. From that moment, the fate of Bimbisara began to turn toward a destiny unlike any before. Chapter 2. The Encounter That Changed a Lifetime. One misty morning, as fog still clung to the slopes of Vulture's Peak, the royal guards moved quietly beyond the gates of Rajagaha. Among the splendid horses and carriages was a single palanquin, unusually modest, bearing King Bimbisara himself. This time, the king did not seek pomp or display of power. His heart was driven by a longing unlike any before, to meet the ascetic whose name now stirred the whole of India. Rumors had spread far and wide, of a man who renounced a royal throne to live as a monk, whose wisdom and compassion drew reverence from kings and commoners alike. And when Bimbisara heard the stories, he felt as though a call had risen from the very depths of his soul. The path up the mountain was serene. No clash of weapons, no blare of trumpets, only birdsong and the rustle of leaves. When the palanquin stopped, Bimbisara stepped down. For the first time, he wore no golden robe, only plain cloth, as he walked to meet the awakened one. From afar, he saw a group of monks seated beneath the sala trees. At their center was a figure of calm majesty, whose gaze shone clear as though it could see through a man's soul. No hint of pride, no trace of worldly authority, yet his presence alone stopped Bimbisara in his tracks. It was Gautama, now the Buddha. The king knelt, his voice trembling. Revered ascetic, I am Bimbisara, ruler of a vast realm. Yet before you, I feel smaller than a grain of dust. Please, grant me your teaching. The Buddha smiled gently. He did not glance at the crown or the robe, but met the restless eyes of the king. His voice, calm yet resounding like a bell, said, Great king, wealth, thrones, and power are but morning blossoms, radiant for a moment, then gone with the rising sun. What truly follows us beyond death is not gold or jewels, but the deeds we plant and the mind we keep. The words cut through the veils of illusion like a sharp blade. For years, Bimbisara had built palaces, hoarded treasures, conquered lands, yet no one had ever spoken so directly to him. His heart quivered, as though struck by a great invisible bell. Silence hung in the air. Then, as if breaking open, Bimbisara cried, "Blessed One, I thought I held the world in my hands. But now I see, I hold nothing but impermanence. Please, show me the true path." The Buddha spoke again, his voice soft as flowing water. "That path is not out there, but within your own heart. Abandon greed, cultivate compassion, practice mindfulness. This is the treasure eternal, which no thief can steal, no death can take away." Tears welled in Bimbisara's eyes. No victory, no fortune had ever moved him so deeply. Amid the stillness of the forest, the mightiest king felt himself but a thirsty traveler who had finally found a spring. When he returned to Rajagaha, the Buddha's words still echoed within him. That night, standing in his palace glittering with golden lamps, surrounded by mountains of treasure, he suddenly saw it all as ash. Calling his closest attendant, he declared, "These riches cannot last. I wish to use them to sow a seed that will never perish." The attendant stammered, "Your Majesty, you mean?" Bimbisara took a deep breath, eyes shining with resolve. "I will dedicate land for the Blessed One and his disciples, a place for them to dwell and share the path of liberation." The court was shaken when the decree spread. Some ministers protested, "Your Majesty, that land is the blood and bone of our people. How can it be given away to a group of penniless monks?" But Bimbisara answered calmly, "Land may be lost, treasure may vanish, but if the hearts of our people are illuminated, then the kingdom will endure." After days of deliberation, he chose the most precious land near Rajagaha, a vast plain shaded, with trees flowing with clear streams, ideal for contemplation. He ordered walls built, dwellings arranged, and offered it all to the Buddha and the Sangha. At the dedication, as the golden light of sunset bathed the walls, crowds gathered in awe. Clad not in royal robes, but in plain white cloth, Bimbisara presented the land, proclaiming before all, "From this day, this place shall be a refuge for those who seek liberation. May it belong not to king nor man, but to truth itself." The people erupted in cheers. Yet in that moment, Bimbisara no longer felt himself a king. He felt like a child, resting in the embrace of boundless wisdom. The Buddha looked upon him with a smile of compassion. And in that smile, Bimbisara knew his life had turned to a new page. No longer would it be defined by gold, thrones, or power, but by the light of an eternal path. Chapter 3. The King Who Departed with Empty Hands and the Invisible Treasure. Many years passed since King Bimbisara offered the golden land to the Buddha and the Sangha. The great monastery of Jetavana rose, becoming a refuge for countless seekers of enlightenment. The temple bells echoed in the morning winds, and the Buddha's teachings flowed along the Ganges, touching the hearts of the people of Magadha. Under his reign, Rajagaha thrived not only because of its strong army and overflowing treasury, but because compassion had spread among the people. They often spoke with gratitude. "We have a king who thinks not only of the throne today, but of the path for generations to come." Yet even the most glorious reign cannot escape the shadow of impermanence. Time passed, and Bimbisara grew old. His hair turned white, his once radiant eyes grew heavy with deep contemplation. One late night, within the silent palace, Bimbisara called Queen Kosala Devi to his side. The flickering lamp reflected his gentle yet weary face. He held her hand and whispered, "My dear, I have lived in silk and gold all these years. But when my eyes close, what will I truly carry with me except this heart?" Tears welled in her eyes as she replied, "Your Majesty, you leave behind not treasures, but light. You have sown merit, and that is the true wealth." Bimbisara smiled faintly. He remembered his first encounter with the Buddha, the serene smile, the words that wealth was like morning dew. Now those words were no longer distant teachings, but a living truth, shining in his final breaths. News of the king's grave illness spread throughout the city. People from far and wide flocked to Rajagaha, lighting lamps, chanting, praying for their ruler. The city glowed with countless flames, as though the people wished to return to him the very light he had given them. On his sickbed, Bimbisara was no longer the majestic monarch. His body was frail, his breathing labored, yet his heart was strangely calm. One dawn, as the first light appeared, He asked to be brought to the window to see the people one last time. The crowd below raised thousands of oil lamps. They did not wail loudly. Instead, they bowed in silence, letting the shimmering light speak their gratitude. Bimbisara gazed upon them and softly said, "Once, I thought the throne was everything. But now I see, what remains is not gold nor power, but love. And that love will walk with me into the next life." At that moment, the Buddha himself entered with several monks. The room seemed brighter, not because of lamps, but from the stillness radiating from him. With effort, Bimbisara sat up and bowed deeply. "Blessed One, I was born a king, but I know it is you who are the true light of my life. Please forgive the wrongs I have committed, and let me depart in peace." The Buddha gently placed his hand on the king's shoulder and said, "Great king, your mistakes cannot follow you if you release them. The merit you have planted has already opened the path for you. Be at ease, for only a pure heart and wisdom can accompany you." Bimbisara's eyes glistened with tears, but his lips curved into a peaceful smile, the smile of one who had finally found the answer. After a lifetime of seeking, when his final breath left him, the palace resonated with the deep chanting of monks, like the waves of the sea. It is said that the skies above Rajagaha were unusually clear that day, and the sun cast a soft golden glow across the land, as though bidding farewell to a noble king. After his passing, history did not remember him as the wealthiest monarch, but as one who bestowed upon the world an invisible treasure, faith in merit and wisdom. From then on, the lesson spread far and wide. Wealth, jewels, thrones, all are left behind when death comes knocking. Only merit, only wisdom, only compassion. These are the companions that walk with us into the next life. And in the hearts of the Indian people, the image of Bimbisara never faded. They passed down the words he uttered at the end. "The throne shall turn to dust. Only compassion and merit are eternal." That fragrance of virtue spread beyond Magadha, across the Ganges. Enduring through centuries, people remembered the king who departed with empty hands, yet left behind an immeasurable treasure within the hearts of humankind. This lesson of karma Buddhist wisdom. For daily life. In daily life, people are often busy pursuing wealth, fame, power, and success, yet rarely pause to reflect what truly stays with us in the end. The Buddha taught that everything external, riches, beauty, youth, and social status, is impermanent, fleeting like clouds drifting across the sky. Only karma, the actions, words, and thoughts we create, truly follow us from one life to the next. The law of cause and effect operates naturally and fairly, without bias. When we plant seeds of compassion, we harvest peace and joy. When we sow seeds of anger or selfishness, we inevitably meet suffering. This is not punishment, but the honest reflection of life itself. Every kind thought, every kind word, every good deed plants wholesome seeds. Conversely, greed, hatred, and ignorance sow harmful seeds, which will also ripen in time. Importantly, karma is not only about some distant future, it manifests right now. A genuine smile can bring immediate happiness to another. A harsh word can wound the heart in an instant. Understanding this, we realize we can transform our destiny here and now, through even the smallest of actions. Buddhism teaches us to live with mindfulness, mindful enough to notice when greed arises and to return to the breath, mindful enough to pause before speaking words that might hurt and to replace them with gentler ones, mindful enough to see that every moment of living is an opportunity to plant seeds of goodness. Karma also helps us let go of blame and resentment. When suffering comes, instead of saying this is someone else's fault, we can see it as the unfolding of past seeds. From there, we learn to take responsibility for our lives, no longer blaming others or waiting for happiness to arrive from outside. We created ourselves through our thoughts, words, and deeds. Another teaching the Buddha emphasized is generosity and compassion. True wealth does not lie in what we hoard, but in what we share. A meal, a smile, a moment of listening. None of these diminish us. Rather, they enrich us, planting seeds for lasting abundance and joy. In today's world, with stress, competition, and anxiety everywhere. Remembering karma can be a source of hope. The future is not fixed. It is built from the causes we create now. If in this moment we choose kindness, mindfulness, and wisdom, the future will inevitably change for the better. Living in the light of karma, we also learn to let go of attachment. We stop clinging to what cannot last. We stop fighting over wins and losses, for we know all things will eventually pass away. What matters is not how much we keep for ourselves, but how much goodness we plant before we leave this world. Ultimately, the law of karma reminds us that life is not about chasing or possessing, but about learning to love, to cultivate wisdom, and to plant merit. Only then, when we cross the final threshold of human life, can we smile, knowing we carry with us the most precious treasure, a pure heart and seeds of compassion.